Hi everybody, this is a very short video to try and get you interested in and get used to using the facilities of the Macro History Data Project. You can read more about that on a paper which is uploaded on our website, but I'm going to start with a very simple example to give you some idea of the power of the system and also to get you practicing and using and asking questions. So to start off, I'm going to share a screen. This screen is to a spreadsheet, which is also on the website. So when you want to do it yourself, the first thing you'll have to do is download that spreadsheet. So here we go. Give me 2 seconds. And this is a very simple spreadsheet which contains what is called a pivot table. Now I'm going to explain what a pivot table is in subsequent videos. At present, this is just for your use. It's there. And what it shows is, you can see here, each year, it displays for 2 geographical blocks, which I'm going to call the global north and the global south, and for mainland China, not including the administrative districts, the gross domestic product, or sometimes called the output of the economy. And this is measured in 2 variables. One is constant dollars, which corresponds to the idea of volume, how much stuff are we producing, and the other is in current dollars, which is money, and the dollars are actually US dollars. So this is what you would have to pay if you went out in the market and used US dollars either to sell or to buy what you produce. And what we want to look at is an issue which is quite important in development and growth economics, which is the South catching up with the North? Now, if the South is catching up with the North, then you would expect its GDP to be a higher proportion of the North's as time goes on. We can take a sneak peek. Here in 1950, in current terms, the South is about 1/5 of the North. Here in constant terms, maybe 1/4 of the North. By the way, I should say that this data here is on the wrong scale. It's something we're going to correct subsequently, but don't worry about that. Probably I'll leave it as an exercise to you guys. We go along to here and we see that in current terms, the South is about 1/3 of the North. In constant terms, it's closer to actually 2/3 of the North. So there's a puzzle here. Its ratio to the North, the value of what it produces compared with the North, is higher in current terms than it is in volume terms. Sorry, it's higher. Yes, it's higher in current. Sorry, it's worse. It's worse in current terms than it is in volume terms. We're going to try and visualize that. We're going to then sort of try and see if we can dig a little bit further, and that will set the scene for subsequent studies. But at present, I just want to get you used to how to doing it. So if we want to calculate the ratio of the South's income to the North's income, what we've got to try and do, if in current terms, is divide this cell here by that cell there. Now this one is B10 and this one is B9. So Excel gives us a very simple way to do that. You put an equal sign, you type in B10, you type a division sign, divide it by B9, and you can see there that the cells are lit up to show you what you're doing. That is your ratio. It's nice to have that in percentage terms. Don't have to, but we can. And we can do that up here in the Home tab. There's a bit called Number, and we can say we'd like that to be a percentage. Now, this one, we should label it is in current dollars. Let's do the same thing in constant dollars. So for that, we're going to want B6 and we're going to divide it by B5. By the way, we could equally have done something else. We could have said, what's the total of the North and the South? And we could have said, what is the South's share of that, or the North's share of that? I'm not going to do this because this is just introducing you to the ideas of how you might visualize things, but you're very welcome to try that yourself. Or we might want to add up China, the North and the South, and see what proportions each of them occupy in that total. That's, as they say, an exercise for the reader. Let's convert this one into a percent. Let's label it constant. Let's get the year, because I'm going to be converting this into a graph. And to do that, here we want to pick up this cell here, B2. So I just say equals B2. There we have the year. Now, I want to have a series. I want to, for every year, show that particular ratio, or those two particular ratios. So I'm going to do a little trick now, and I'll explain what I'm doing. I'm holding down the Shift key. As I hold down the Shift key, I'm pressing the down arrow, and I do that twice. So I've now highlighted those three cells, and what we're going to try and do is copy them along here. Now, there's two ways to do that. One way that you're probably used to is you hover your mouse over that little black button there, and you drag it along until you reach the end. I'm going to use another way. The choice is up to you. I'm going to press Control-C for copy. Or I could do it using right-click with the mouse, and I could say, I want to copy that. It doesn't matter. Now I'm going to use a further little trick. I'm going to move the right arrow up to here. That's the series that already exists. And I'm now going to hold down Control and right arrow. And what that does is it moves my cursor right along to the end of the series that we're interested in. Now I'm going to produce right arrow, which gets me down, and follow this sequence because you will find it useful. I'm going to hold down Control and Shift, and I'm going to go left arrow. Now what happens here is it's actually highlighted the entire width of where we're going to paste the data. And all I need to do now is press Enter. That data is now in there. So we've got our data for current and constant. Now let's see if we can make a graph of that data. Now again, I'm going to make copious use of the Shift, down arrow, up arrow, and Control keys here. But you, if you want, you could do it by, for example, taking that little black thing there, dragging it along all the way to the end. You can do this. And you can see it does get a bit tedious. So you could go to here and, well, in actual fact, doesn't seem it's going to let me, but I could take it along to, there is a trick where you can use the mouse to get it to the end, but I'm not going to do that. I just went back there with a Control left arrow. Instead, I'm going to use the Shift key. I'm going to go down arrow, and now the same trick. I'm holding down Control and Shift. Control with the arrow keys acts as a kind of extender. It says a bit more than just one cell. Go to the end of a series. And Shift says, don't just go there, but as you go, make a selection. So remember, Shift makes sure you get a selection, and Control extends how far you go. So Control, Shift, and right arrow. We've now picked up, selected that entire series. And I want to now make a chart. So I'll pick Insert. And here is where the chart options are. You see that tab there? It's what's called the ribbon in Microsoft. So this is a tab on the ribbon, and in it there's a specific, I can't remember what these little things are called. I think they're called groups. There's a group, and that includes a whole lot of chart options. We could pick a number of these. We could do a bar chart if we wanted. We could do something more fancy. But what I'm going to do is pick a line graph, a 2D line graph, and I'm going to pick the simplest possible line graph. So this is going to plot for me, you can see it behind there, the constant and current ratio of south to north. And I'm going to click on that, and there we are. Maybe we'll change the title. I just clicked there and I said, okay. It goes up here, you see. I hope. Here we are. So that went in on with it. So it's in a nice place. Now you can play with that chart. There are a variety of things you can do. One of them is you can move it so it occupies a sheet on its own. So we can do that. Look here, it's already automatically placed us in chart design, but if you lose where you want to go, make sure you get back to chart design. And we're going to choose move chart. And we're going to say we're going to put it in a new sheet, and that sheet will call South North GDP ratio. There we are. We've moved it to a new place. We can play around with it, improve the the size of the fonts and all the rest of the things. But let's go back to our original. Now, this is all very interesting, and there are many things that you might want to ask, some of which I'm going to put in little suggestions for what you might want to look at. But I want to just raise a couple of issues for you to think about. In fact, I'll raise three. The first is, what does this tell us? Economically, what can we learn from what we're seeing in that graph? Second, how could we investigate that? Could we produce another visualization that gives us some insight into what we think might be going on? And the third is a very simple one. Could we be wrong? Is there an error in the way that we've constructed the visualization? As Disraeli famously noted, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. I think these days one might say there are lies, damn lies, statistics, and visualizations, because it's very easy to lie with a visualization. So I want to give a little bit of thought to how we might improve on that. By the way, when you've finished, what you can do is save it with this button here, or leave it and it'll just revert to what you did before. It's up to you. And I want to just open your eyes to a couple of things. First of all, what is the definition of the South and the definition of the North? But in order to do this, I'm going to do a tiny bit of tidying, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these little plus signs to show you what is in the North and what is in the South. But before I do that, I have to get this data out of the way, because when it expands, it will try to overwrite it. So it's all already selected. So I'm going to cut it and go to another sheet and simply enter. And now we've kept the data. For some reason I've lost a year. I don't quite know how that happened, but anyway, we can fix that. The key point is to get a separate sheet with the chart data. And now we're going back here, to the pivot. We don't have this in the way anymore. And I'm going to do something very simple. I'm going to click on this little plus sign. Now, this is a feature of the way pivot charts work, which is very critical to the methods we use. It's what's broadly called business analytics, but instead of using business analytics, we're doing it to engage in economic analytics. When I click on that, it's going to show us all the countries that are in the North, according to the definition that I've used. And one of the things to think about is that a good definition? So here we are. This is, I'll see if I can expand that a bit, all the countries that are in the definition of the North that we've used. Now let's look at all the countries that are in the South. And I'll just point one thing to you here. There's some gaps. I want you to think about whether those gaps might affect the results that we get. But basically, by expanding those two, you can dig down into that data and you can say, what is it I'm actually finding there? Well, that's enough. I'm just really raising questions in your head, but I hope that you will be able to repeat this exercise, construct this graph, construct this table that we're looking at now, and start answering questions. Some of those questions you won't be able to answer with the data that's in this simple worksheet, but we're going to go and produce something a bit better later on. So that's it for now. Goodbye from me. I'll stop sharing. I'll say goodbye. So thank you very much for watching.